Hello, and welcome to Fuck Up Nights, presented by WUSA. We're very excited to have Fuck Up Nights here. WUSA sees a lot of value in acknowledging your failures, and after all, 2020 is the most fucked up year of all time. So we're really going to do it tonight. Through the night, if you don't mind sharing your fuck up stories in the chat, you could win some cool prizes like these Fuck Up Night T-shirts and some Fuck Up Night water bottles. Pretty cool with the WUSA logo on there too. You don't want to miss it. It's going to be a great show, so make sure you stay the whole time. You could win some prizes at the end. Right now, I'm going to introduce the self-acclaimed CEO of Fuck Ups, the man who put this whole event together. He's going to tell you a bit more about it. Put your hands together for Mr. Jeff.
So generous. Thanks, everyone. Nice to be virtually attending with everybody in wherever you're speaking from. Fuck Up Nights. My name's Jeff McIntyre. As I said, I am the king of fuck ups. I'm fuck up royalty. I've messed up more times than I've succeeded, and so far it's worked out for me. But Fuck Up Nights really spoke to me when I first heard about this. I got an invitation to an event. It was about 2 years ago, and it said Fuck Up Nights. I bought a ticket immediately, not understanding exactly what it was. And to me, it was really what I embrace is learning from failure. I taught a course at Conestoga College a couple of years ago, and my assignment was to write a story about a corporate villain, someone that really is an asshole or someone that really shit the bed or was a jerk, and no one could do it. They kept focusing on hero aspirations and people that really impressed them. And I was really struggling with the fact that we're not embracing failure and we're not embracing villains to move it forward. And, fast forward to Fuck Up Nights, and it's become a thing, and it's really quite exciting. So what is Fuck Up Nights? It's based out of this. This is everyone's expectation. If anyone's seen the movie, they know exactly what this is all about. When in fact, this is often the reality. And this is the story that happens more and more and more. Failure is uncomfortable. There's tons and tons of different views, short stories, videos of failure. And we laugh at them. There's an expression, tragedy plus time equals humor. This is good stuff. It's uncomfortable. They're probably still laughing about this now. Maybe they weren't at the time. Who hasn't been down that road where they've created something? So what is Fuck Up Nights? This is how it all started. Most good stories start with people having drinks. And the reality is, it started in Mexico City about 8 years ago. And there were 4 or 5 young entrepreneurs sitting around talking about how great everything was. And then throughout the night, as more mezcal was flowing, more drinks were happening, they started telling the truth. And they started sharing the fact that it wasn't going as planned. And the deeper they got into the alcohol, the deeper they got into the stories, they got into the truth. And the interesting that came out of that was the fact that they learned more from each other's failures. They didn't feel like they were alone. Not everybody was executing and crushing it as planned. So it was very therapeutic for them. And they thought, hey, let's start something great here. And they moved into Fuck Up Nights. So as of right now, Fuck Up Nights is not unique to the Waterloo region. It's in 300 cities around the world, 90 countries. And this was done probably 6 months ago or so, but there was been over 1 million physical attendees. Normally we'd be in a big room, there'd be beer, there'd be pizza, there'd be laughter, there'd be stories, there'd be networking, connecting. But because we're doing it online right now, it's a little bit different. But this is not unique to Waterloo region. This is a worldwide movement that is really making some big inroads with around the world to share these stories and give people some solace that they're not alone. So at Fuck Up Nights, we believe there's 3 kinds of people: those who have failed, those that will fail, those who have failed, those who will fail, and the liars. There's a lot of liars in this world. They just can't handle admitting it. We've had a number of speakers, and we've had to cut them off a little bit because they were the classic example of what's your biggest weakness is I'm a perfectionist, or these types of things. They just couldn't allow themselves to be vulnerable and move through. So we call those people the liars. It's never as good as it appears. 2020 is a great example of that. And, we're here for everybody as we move through. So what is failure? And if you look at the truest definition of this whole process, the act of failing is the lack of success. That's pretty harsh. But shortcoming, adverse or negative outcomes of an endeavor or a business venture, ill-fated, cataclysmic, dire, disastrous events, the epic fail or the ruin of a quest. It's as difficult to understand what failure means as it is to define success. Everyone's definition of success and failure are very unique, and it's interesting that every person we talk to would have a different opinion on what defines them as it relates to their failure and what defines them as it relates to what success is. So it's tough space to be in, but it's very unique and interesting. Failure sucks, but it instructs. We've learned as much from failure as we have learned from people doing it great. It's really hard to replicate success. Sometimes you have to trip. Sometimes you have to fall. Sometimes you have to move in the wrong direction to understand that you're going the right way. You need a quick correction. So again, I'm a big fan of sharing the fuck up, sharing the unfortunate events that have got you to this point and learning from those. And the great thing about fuck up nights is we get to share those. So hopefully some people won't do it. We always run into situations where people will say, I saw a speaker, they told me exactly what to do, and I did it anyway. And it's a classic example of until we figure out how to do this all through, there's no roadmap, you got to fail yourself. But hopefully there'll be a few people in the audience tonight that don't mess up because of something they learned. So we're really excited to have 3 speakers tonight, assuming everything goes well with the whole virtual world that we're in right now. Mark Lafleur, amazing guy, Waterloo grad. Martin Basiri, Masters, University of Waterloo grad. And Emily O'Brien, who's got the most unique story of everybody. As a parent, I always think my daughter could have been an Emily. She is an Emily by name. She's not an Emily by actions. But that story is fantastic. So this is something you'll want to share with friends, family, everyone. So this is where to find us. Fuck Up Nights KW, hashtag Fuck Up Nights Kitchener Waterloo. Facebook, Instagram. We've got quite a good social following, and I think sharing these stories is pretty interesting. So anything you want to tag, anything you want to follow in and see how this moves through, please do so. We always appreciate that. Now, it's called Fuck Up Nights. It is not called Fucked Up Nights. I don't know what you're doing in your comfort of your own home right now, but when we have an events, we refer to it not as Fucked Up Nights. It's not Fuck Nights. If we're tagging anything on your social media feeds, and it is certainly not Fuck Fest. There was a speaker that was in Toronto. It was an event, and they introduced this, and one guy got up and left. So I think he thought it might have been some kind of dating event. So you have an interesting role as participants. We've asked for chats on the outside. If we were here in person, you'd see the opportunities, the anguish, the stories that people are telling, and there's real vulnerability. And I think it's really important that we all avoid judgment. If we have some questions now or after, we have to understand the fact that they've messed up. They're willing to share their stories with us, which we think is fantastic. And we have to appreciate the courage for doing so. And if there are questions, and we definitely encourage you to do those, so we have some, but we do have a chat. If there's a question you have for a speaker throughout and you're thinking of it, just get it into the chat so we can have some good dialogue and engagement at the end. With that, I'll bring Ben back in.
Thank you, Jeff. Thanks for going through that with us. I saw we lost like 1,000 people when you said it wasn't a fuck fest, but but I'm sure they're coming back. They're coming right back. I'm excited to introduce your first speaker coming in over the internet on Zoom for us. He's the CEO and co-founder of True Local. Some fun things about him. If Mark could do any sport in the world, he'd race Formula One cars. He was a Yu-Gi-Oh champion when he was 14 years old. And he failed statistics twice in university and then went to health at UW because it was the only program in Canada that offered health without a math prerequisite. And he's here right now for us. Mark Lafleur, everybody.
Hey, everybody. How's it going? Awesome. Always love that intro. Really sets the tone here. So I'm gonna go ahead do a quick screen share. I'm gonna hopefully be able to get some sort of feedback as to whether or not you guys can see it. I believe you will. Let's give this a go. All right, looking good. Okay, I'm gonna assume yes. Alrighty, so you guys are gonna have to bear with me. This is definitely the first time I'm doing this talk without doing it in person. So this is a story that's near and dear to my heart. Hopefully, I usually like to move around and walk and kind of feed off the crowd a little bit, but it'll be interesting kind of staring into the camera. So bear with me a little bit, but I'll make sure to get the points across. So one of the biggest things I've always known, and they always tell you, is that when you're giving a talk, it's really important to start with some sort of quote or some sort of image that just sets the tone for the entire presentation. That's like the go-to, you got to do that. And it kind of prefaces what you're about to go into and gives something for the audience to think about. But being completely honest, I'm just going to give you the two main points right up front that I want to be talking about here. So the two main things that I want you guys to be taking away out of this talk and this experience and, this monumentous fuck up I'm about to tell you guys about is that, number one, everything happens for a reason. Okay. And I always, once again, talking about this fuck up, I always say that the people that I'm talking to, like, you got to look around. If you're tuning in right now, if you're in university, no matter what has happened in your life, it happened for a reason, and it's part of where you're at today. So you wouldn't be where you are today if all of the good, the bad, the ugly, if all those things didn't happen, you wouldn't be where you're at. So I think it's really important to understand that if you're even remotely content with where you are in life, and that doesn't mean happy, okay, and we'll get into that a little bit, but if you're just, alive, you're breathing, you've had some hard times, but with where you're at today, it's not, a complete and total shit show, then really all of the bad things that happened throughout happened for a reason. I think it's really important to understand that. And then number two is that you have the power to change absolutely anything going on in your life. Okay. So there's a lot of people that think they're stuck and that the world has done them wrong. And that, it's unfair and, why is this happening to me? But once you get into a lifestyle or once you get into a mindset that you have the power to change all of it, it really becomes a powerful tool, especially as an entrepreneur, especially as someone going into business. So those are the two main things I want you to take away out of the talk tonight. About to hear a pretty decent story about a real fuck up. And I hope that's what you guys are able to take out of it. So the interesting thing about this story is that it really starts at the beginning for me. Okay. And when I talk about the beginning, I'm talking about the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey. Okay. So I'm talking about back in the day when I was at UW, I was in second year and I really didn't give a shit about anything. Like, if we're honest here, I moved from a small town. I got to Waterloo. I literally lived on the other side of Ottawa. Waterloo was the biggest city I'd ever been in. And really, if I could get $15 together for the weekend to go to Phil's on a Wednesday or a Sunday, like, life was pretty good. That's kind of where my priorities were laying. So that's the beginning for me. And the interesting time about the beginning is that it's also the time that I had no idea about startups or entrepreneurship. I had no idea that there were businesses being built, hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars being built and invested and acquired and just transferred hands behind apps. Like, it boggled my mind. So I didn't know any of this type of stuff. I thought that realistically, you either had to go to school. If you want to go to be in the trades, you're going to go to college. If you want to go into university, you're going to use the degree that you get, which, like, come on, let's get real. It's a pretty big joke at this point. But the whole idea was that I didn't understand that there were business opportunities. And I didn't understand that you could do more than just being an engineer or being a computer science major or being a teacher. I thought that's kind of the route that it was. So this really does go back to the beginning for me. And I think the funny part about the beginning, and especially those Phil's weekends, is that it's an interesting time in your life when your life goes from this. And yeah, these are the good days. I can definitely say that me and my friends have done some similar things, except we weren't doing it for a video. We were just doing it for fun. So it's an interesting time when your life goes from this, and it just seems like overnight it transitions into this. And it looks like everything around you is on fire and you're just kind of going through the motions and everything is burning. And fuck, if we're looking at 2020, like, come on, let's get real. This is pretty much the image that sums up 2020. And now being, a founder and running a business, I can definitely attest to this. This is a fact. This is what's going on in life. But the way I look at it now is that it's not all bad, because if I didn't go through a series of fuck ups, and I'm talking like a series of fuck ups, like way too many to count, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. And that kind of leads into the whole idea that everything happens for a reason. And to be honest, life isn't all that bad. I'm fortunate. I've got a family that loves me. I've got an amazing team. Things aren't that bad. Most recently, we were just featured on the cover of the Globe and Mail. So ironically, when you look at this story and talking about how I fucked up and it being one of the darkest points of my life, none of this would have happened if I didn't go through this. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys about how I had one of the biggest fuck ups I've ever had in my life. So when we go back to the beginning, we go back to Tell. All right. So Tell is my first startup. And I always like to ask this. I won't be able to see you guys, but hands raised for anybody who's ever heard about Tell. Typically what happens, nobody raises their hand. Case in point. So Tell is an instant messaging app that me and 3 of my buddies created that would allow you to send messages. And if that message gets opened, you then can't reopen it. Sounds familiar? Of course. That's because it's inspired off of Snapchat. And the way that this got started was that back in second year, back at the beginning, it was probably some Phil's weekend for all I know. I remember hearing that Facebook offered Snapchat $3 billion. And you got to understand that at the time, I couldn't even conceptualize what $1 million was, let alone try to wrap my head around $3 billion. Like that made no sense to me whatsoever. So I thought maybe if you get lucky and you're a doctor, maybe one day you might be a millionaire. I didn't even know that $1 billion made sense in business. So as soon as I heard this, it was like a light went off in my head. And I'm like, fuck this health degree. I'm going to go into business. And that's what kind of set me off on this track to where I'm at today. And by no means am I a millionaire or billionaire or anywhere along those lines just yet. But if I hadn't gotten inspired by this, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today. So when you look at Tell was fucked from the get-go for a couple of reasons. So number one, it was fucked because it was me and 3 buddies, and none of us had any tech experience at all between us. Okay. So it was literally a situation where we heard that this, Snapchat got offered $3 billion. Snapchat at the time wasn't doing messaging. So we thought we were kind of being clever. Like, wow, we could be really original. We'll do it, but do it for messaging. And yeah, we kind of just decided that, hey, let's get after it. No experience, nothing whatsoever. Like me and my 3 buddies, we were literally personal trainers, in fitness, focusing on our health degrees, barely even knowing how to use Instagram at the time. And we just decided that we're like, hey, look, you know what? This is a toy. It's an app. Like, how complicated could it be? Right. Once again, when I think about big business, I think about, thousands of employees, transport trucks, billboards, all this type of stuff. And when you look at an app, you don't see any of that. All you see is a little icon on your phone. So we figured, you know what? Here's what we can do. Let's take our OSAP money. And for anybody tuning in that doesn't know what OSAP is, but student loan money, meant to pay for school. We're like, look, why don't we pool all of our student loan money together? And, I think between the 4 of us, we got like $10,000 together. We're like, all right, we'll take this. We'll build an app and we'll be millionaires by the summer. It's perfect. It'll work out. So that was the idea. And needless to say, that was not the case. But I think that a lot of inspiration starts from that sort of idea. It kind of starts from a point of naivete, or however you want to say it. And so that was one of the reasons why we were fucked. But if we're being completely honest, the second reason we were fucked is because, to my happiness at the time, I got nominated as the CEO of our 4-person enterprise. And I got called out as being the leader. They're like, Kate, call the shots, make this happen. And it fed my ego. And I was really excited about that. However, being 20, maybe 22 at the time, and trying to manage money and manage people and manage friendships and going to thinking that you're a hot star, rock star, hot shot that can build an app, it doesn't really lend super well. So that was the second reason we were fucked up, is because I was CEO and I was a horrible leader. Pretty much to the point that I was trying to think of a really good way to show you guys how bad of a leader I was, and I couldn't, but what I did find was this. So this was definitely the type of leader that I was. And for those of you that don't watch Game of Thrones, you need to go watch Game of Thrones. But for those of you that do, you understand where I'm getting at. I was literally just a psycho. I was crazy. I liked to yell. I wanted everything done my way. It had to be my way or the highway. Everything needed to be done to perfection. And if it wasn't, I would blame everybody else. I always like to say that, once again, for those of you that have watched Game of Thrones, I haven't ever taken a stripper, tied her to my bed, and shot her with a crossbow, but I've done some pretty fucked up shit. And for those of you that haven't seen Game of Thrones, you need to go watch that episode because it'll all put into context. And if you haven't, well, So going through this entire thing, I was in a situation where we actually got to a point where we had some traction. Considering the fact that we had no experience, we got featured in Beta Kit. We got our first few users. We got traction in the Waterloo community. And I think that's a testament to Waterloo's community. We started running our Facebook ads. We had investor meetings. And once again, just to be clear here, these are people that have no experience whatsoever being led by a megalomaniac. And we were just pretty much taking things day by day. And we also had no money. So one of the big things that happened that kind of became a bit of an epiphany for me was that as a crazy CEO, you love to control things. All right. You want to control everything. And of course, not knowing any better, we needed to get this app developed. So we weighed our options. Do we bring on a CTO, which of course I would have had no idea what that meant at the time. But what do we do? Do we go hire somebody? Do we work with an agency? What do we do? And of course, we found this incredibly qualified individual off Kijiji who claimed that he could develop apps. And now looking back on it, I understand what this was. This was a situation where this wasn't the developer. This was the guy who talked to the developer who were in India and would relay the whole information back and forth. So when we met with this guy, I did what I always had to do. I tried to take control of the situation. I had to control everything. I had to have access to everything. And one of the main things that I felt like I needed access to was the database. And we were using Parse at the time. And once again, for anybody who's technical out there, don't grill me on it. We had a database. I believe it was using Parse. And I forget if it was called exactly Parse. But long story short is that my flaws and me being who I was at the time meant that I had to get access to that. Even though I was never going to use it, it made no sense. I didn't even know why I wanted it. I just wanted it for the sake of wanting it. I needed access to the bank accounts. I needed access to the emails. I needed access to the database. I needed access to the Facebook ads. I needed access to all of it. So anyway, going through this, I was, just doing my thing. And one night I decided that I was going to go into the database just to kind of poke around and make sure everything was up to standard, even though I had no idea what the fuck I was looking at. And what I noticed was that there were a lot of duplicate users. So we had just launched, just did our launch party, actually. We, had a launch party and we figured what's the best way to get a bunch of people involved? Let's offer free booze. So that was cool. We did that. We did that really well too, actually. So had a party, bunch of free booze. Hey, everybody, come on down. Actually, it wasn't free. If you download our app, we'll give you the free booze. Worked out pretty well. So right after that, I was going through, I found all these duplicated users and I'm like, you know what? Fuck, these guys are sloppy. Why haven't they dealt with this yet? I'll take care of it. I'll take it in my own hands. And what ended up happening is I started selecting these users and I clicked delete to make sure that I deleted these users. And I'll never forget when that box popped up that said, are you sure you want to delete? And I think this makes a little bit more sense because I forgot to mention this in the beginning, but this whole talk and this whole experience and this whole fuck up is called, are you sure you want to delete? So this box pops up and it says, are you sure you want to delete? And I click yes. And I'll never forget what happens next. Instead of deleting one user, I deleted every single account that we had. That was what we had been working on for the past year. We somehow put all of our OSAP money together, which I'm still paying back, by the way. We somehow got featured in a tech publication. We somehow built this app. We somehow got it launched. And then me, Mr. Fearless Leader, Mr. I can do no wrong whatsoever, went ahead and fucked this whole thing up. And I deleted all of our users. And this was a situation, this was a low point in my life. And not for just one reason. It was a low point in my life for the obvious fucking reason that I just deleted all of our users. But it was another reason that I had to admit that I fucked this up. And this was on me. Okay. And I like to look at this because I always felt like life slapped me in the face. This is how I felt. I felt like I was getting slapped in the face by life. And I was like, why did this happen? Who could I blame? What's going on here? What is the case? And looking back on it now, it's so obvious to me to see that life didn't slap me in the face. I slapped myself in the fucking face. I'm the one who fucked this up. This was my fault. My ego let this happen. If there was any other leader, they wouldn't have been in this situation. If I had just listened to what everyone was telling me, saying I don't need access to XYZ, this wouldn't have happened. So it was this really hard time where I had to kind of look internally and admit and say, hey, wow, like I fucked this up. And I think one of the craziest things about it is that as I reflect on it, it was probably one of the best things that ever happened to me. Because if I didn't go through this experience, I never would have been where I'm at today. So looking at it now, I always say, what did I learn? And I think it's really important to sidebar our conversation here because there's an entire topic that could be talked about discussing why you should fail on your first startup. And most people do. And kind of like what Jeff was saying, if you didn't, or if you're one of the very fortunate few people who made it off the first get-go, congratulations to you. But most of us fuck up, especially on our first time. And I believe that's okay because if I didn't fuck up with Tell, I wouldn't have learned how to interact with people. I wouldn't have learned where my flaws are. I wouldn't have been able to learn how to deal with the media or run Facebook ads or reach out to PR, any of those types of things. And that to me is what's most important. So what did I learn? Well, I learned that everything happens for a reason, like I said before. And I can't stress this enough. And, I know Steve Jobs said this really well. And there's a very famous speech from him. I think it's Stanford speech that he did for the graduating class. But no offense to Steve Jobs, but the first time I ever heard this was from my mom. So my mom, when I was a kid, always used to say everything happens for a reason. And I found it really hard to understand because especially when you're living in it, it's impossible to see. It's not something that you can deal with when you're having a low point in your life. If you're in a relationship and you just got dumped, or if you just got fired, if you got any of that type of stuff, it's impossible to see why it happened. And I think a lot of people ask, where did I get this belief that everything happens for a reason? And everybody believes that it comes from struggle and everybody believes that it comes from crisis. But in fact, it came from all the good things that happened in my life because I've been through some shit just like everybody else. Some times where you're so down, where you feel the entire world's closing in on you. And I felt like, wow, what can I do next? Like, there's no way I can get out of this. But then I look at the good times and I look at where I'm at today and I feel so blessed. I feel so fortunate. Like I said before, we're just in such a good place right now. And none of this would have happened if I hadn't gone through these issues. So looking back on it now, I do believe the universe has a plan for all of us. I believe if you feel like you're destined for greatness, or if you push for it, if you believe in it, all of the things that you're going through are just part of the story. Okay. So that's number one. And number two, only you can change your life. All right. And this kind of builds off number one. So my fuck up with Tell, where I deleted all of our fucking users, yet somehow today I'm still running a successful business. I realize that only you can change your life. And what I mean by that is that there's a lot of victim personalities out there. And I think people are so sensitive about it nowadays. Like, oh, don't victim blame and don't do any of that shit. Like, you got to shut the fuck up and take responsibility for your life because nobody else is going to. Okay. And you can be sensitive and you can be XYZ and you can say, well, my boss fired me, so fuck him. And my girlfriend dumped me or my boyfriend dumped me, so fuck them. And, you can complain about where you're at in life, or you can do the only real thing that you can do and make a change. Pull yourself out of the gutter, pull yourself out of the trenches, go inside your mind, figure out who you are, become self-aware, and decide what you need to do next to put yourself in a better position. Because until you do that, you will always, always, always be in a shithole, and you'll never be able to reap the rewards of everything happening for a reason. So that's something that I found really important. And that's something that I've always built off of. And one thing I can say nowadays is after going through this entire situation, and trust me, there have been a lot of fuck ups since that and after that, and I will continue to fuck up ongoing. But I truly do believe that everything does happen for a reason. And if I feel like I'm in a situation that I don't want to be in or that I need to make better, I will always take that power and make it better. So right now, I can always say that even if I'm having an absolute shit day, I wake up and I'm feeling like a boss. Running a business is stressful. It's not to say I wake up happy, but I can really feel like I feel energized. I feel powerful. I feel like because I know everything happens for a reason and I can make any changes that I want, I feel like I have the power. I'm sure you guys have seen the movie Thanos, right? When he gets these damn Infinity Stones, puts it into his gauntlet and just feels juiced up. I actually feel like that every single day, even if I've been kicked in the nuts. There's so many times that it happens, but this is how I feel. And I would never have felt like Thanos putting that Infinity Stone in his gauntlet if I didn't feel like Joffrey getting fucking bitch slapped by a midget. Like, that's just the way life goes. Everything happens for a reason. You can change anything you want. And that's my story.
Mark, amazing. Second time I've heard it, and then second time I got something out of it. So if everyone was here, they'd be applauding right now. And I think the vulnerability you shared is so important to this whole process. And the maturity that you're showing. And I think that that's the realization that being open and honest and vulnerable, we talked about that, is so important. Question about you, looking back on what you were at the time, you know, the guy that was yelling and screaming. I worked for an organization and they had a sign up, and I'll never forget it. It said, "We only yell here if something's on fire." So being the jerk you were, what do you do now when you feel that coming back on? Or one, and then two is, how are you coaching people, or what do you do when you see someone else that acts like old Mark?
It's all still part of who I am. You know, there's a certain part of people that change, but I don't necessarily believe that you get rid of bad traits. I think that you're just able to moderate them better. You know, there was value to being that person back in the day, you know, and it could have been maybe aggressively going after deals, potentially, maybe dealing with investors, things like that. But to use that side of me to deal with people on my team or people that you care about, that wasn't okay. So I think I've been able to kind of suppress that version of myself and bring it out whenever you need it. But now I think I have a way better understanding of what it does take to manage a team. And I think it takes nurturing and it takes building people up and not getting frustrated. I actually have on one of my goals. So obviously I've got my yearly goals for myself personally. And, you know, instead of leading with anger, lead with frustration, lead with guidance. So anytime I see people get frustrated, and I think everyone can relate to this, you're able to very quickly pick up the bad traits in yourself in other people. And I think that's something that's very interesting, is that whenever you see someone and they really annoy you, like maybe they're chewing with their mouth open, or maybe they're just like saying something weird, it's actually, and if it bugs you more than it should, it's probably more of a mirror reflection of something that bothers you. So I think that ironically, even speaking to this, me being such an asshole and a jerk back in the day, I can very quickly spot it in other people. And I just do the same thing. I try to coach them. I try to tell them this exact same story and be like, look, man, this is my third business. And I had a very short lifespan of my first business because I used to be this way. And I understand, you know, you want things done your own way. I get it, but you can't have that as a manager. You can do that as an individual contributor. If you're a rock star sales rep, go do it your own fucking way, and fuck everybody else who's telling you to do something differently. You're an individual contributor. There's nothing wrong with that, right? But if you want to manage an organization or manage a team or inspire or lead, you have to be patient and be willing to nurture. So that's my biggest thing that I would tell people, is that if you've got that jerk side of you, don't shun it. You know, you can look back on it and criticize it, but it's still a part of you, and you still need that at some certain points in times. But you have to also be able to switch between those different characteristics based on the situation that you're in.
You just exude empathy when you're chatting. So tell us a little bit about 2020 and how empathy is played into your staffing, into your customers, everything you're dealing with right now. And then give us a little pitch on what you're doing, please.
Yeah, you know, empathy is huge. And I think that empathy is something I also learned with True Local, because the only reason we're at where we're at today is because of our customers. And I know that sounds cheesy, but I draw a direct line. And I don't think there's a whole lot more important than us being where we're at today than the community we built early on. And I think because we poured our blood, sweat, and tears in this business, just like every other panelist here and every other founder, we've always been a D2C company. And we had those opportunities to build those strong relationships with our early customers, and watching them give us that support back when our prices were whack or our website was fucked or we missed a delivery. They just understood us because they cared. They cared about our story. It made me understand that this is how you need to treat people. And it made me understand that this is how you have to build community. And if you have a community, because kind of sidebar here, but if you have a community, that's the best form of fighting off competition. If you have a community, and it's the best form of dealing with the fact that businesses aren't going to be perfect. And I think a lot of people want their business to be perfect, and it's impossible. So if you're able to get to a point where you build a community, build a strong community, you're going to build a business that can deal with whether or not you have fuck ups. And I think COVID is a perfect example of that. You know, for us, we ended up having to push back 7-day delivery windows, or sorry, 7-day delivery windows. And that's just because of the amount of volume we had coming in. So one of the biggest things that we did during that time was obviously we sent out I always send out the direct emails myself. So we send emails to all of our customers because we built that community. We want people to hear directly from me. I draft all the emails myself, send them out myself, and I respond to all the emails myself. And I always still do that to this day because I'll never forget what it was like to just have that conversation. I think the biggest key here is that a lot of people like to send out those automated emails and it goes back to no reply. Like we literally reply, like I personally reply to every one of those emails to kind of show that empathy. In terms of the team and the staffing, honestly, it was just about throwing all the goals out the window. We threw every single goal out the window, all the business goals, the hours, we threw everything out the window and just went into survival mode because of the volume. So once again, we're fortunately blessed, and it's 50-50 right now, whether you're in a business that's been struggling during COVID or you're in a business that's been booming. And from a subscriber perspective and a growth perspective, we were booming, but that brings up other problems, staffing issues. How do we make our warehouses safe? Supply chain issues. So we threw everything that was goal related out the window. We let our team work when they were able to work because we were doing a lot of extra hours and just switched everything from being about let's deliver food to people to how do we run this business safely and make sure that we're able to stay open and keep our doors open and make sure we keep people paid and keep people fed. So it's it's been a very interesting 2020 for sure.
Mark, you're a gift. Your message is a gift, and we really appreciate. And I don't say that lightly. It's what you just shared is really very valuable. I'm happy that Tell fucked up, and I'm happy you learn from it. I'm happy you shared that with everybody. So if everyone was here right now, we give you another round of applause. We appreciate you very much for your gift. Keep up the great work, and any information that you can share with us on things like this going forward is always welcome. Wide open door for you to speak at Fuck Up any night. So, Mark, thank you very much.
Hey, I love the community. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. I will most certainly be collecting some more fuck up stories for you guys.
Cheers.
Take care.
Thank you so much, Mark. Yeah, applause. That's great. Before I introduce your next speaker, I wanted to share one of the fuck-ups that was submitted online from John. John fucked up. He was in a Zoom meeting, and he turned his camera off to change, but then he realized he actually only muted himself. He showed his coworkers his butt. That's that's a fuck-up if I've ever heard one. And speaking of fuck-ups, we're going to bring up your next speaker next. This guy is the CEO and co-founder of Apply Board. He lived in Sierra Leone for 3 months, taught himself Latin dancing, and when he's at work, the most exciting problems for him are the ones that he doesn't know the answer to. Please clap at home, why don't you, for Martin Basiri, everybody.
Hi everyone, my name is Martin Basiri and I'm so happy to be here. Anything related to you, Waterloo, that's my thing. I thought a lot what I'm going to share with you, and I didn't find that many things because I never fuck up, everything's always good. And I wish life was like that. And I was just thinking about which one I'm going to tell tonight, which one was the most hilarious one and some funny one, because running a business, everything is every day you are going through that. So I thought of first tell you guys where I'm coming from, so you understand why those things happen. 10 years ago, I came to Canada to study my master's degree as an international student. I couldn't speak English, so while I was doing my master's in mechanical engineering and mechatronics engineering, I had to also go to Renaissance College to learn English. I knew some English, but it wasn't the greatest. And then I graduated, I went to US, worked, done a couple of entrepreneurship. I failed the project. Maybe another time talk to you about that project. So basically, I quitted my job without having a project and without having an idea. I just quit. I just knew I want to start a company. I just didn't know what. So I said, okay, let's quit and then we'll figure it out. That story took 9 months to figure it out, but we can cover it another night. What happened then, during the time that me and my brothers, we came to Canada to study, we figured this is such a hard thing to do. So And when I've done that project and I failed that project, I didn't have money. So I said, why don't I just use my skill of helping other people so I could make enough money to spend time for my next project. And then the first students I helped, my brother, we realized like, oh, we could automate this. If this is such a big problem that people are willing to pay for it, why don't we just create a software? 5 years ago at Velocity, we started the company, May 2015. 5 years later, we are 600 employees, 400 in Canada, 200 in 20 other countries. We raised about $250 million in Canadian dollar, which is about like 180, 90 million USD. And we work with about 1,400 universities and colleges and like institutions in Canada, United States, Australia, and UK. We're like pretty good. On average, our employees per month, through the work that they do, they create one or more jobs per employee, which is like very proud. And we have tens of thousands of students, which is also very good. And it makes us very happy because our job is to make education accessible for students around the world. We want to make sure everyone have access to good education, because if you have access to good education, you could do magic in your life. You can do whatever you want in your life. And if a lot of people here, they take the education and the things that we have here kind of for granted. But if, for example, you go from where I was born in Iran, or if you go to Bangladesh or Vietnam or India, you understand like what it means that only 20% of society could go to higher education. You understand what it means to 3 years writing an exam to enter any engineering school. Schools over there is kind of like a diamond to get. So it's very hard. And I'm happy that we are helping people, they could do that. My story of failure is this. This is like about 2 years ago, and I'm now doing fundraising. And just to give you a sense, not that is important, our company right now valued at 1.4 billion USD, which is about 2 billion Canadian. So the conversations when you go and talk about these levels are kind of very serious. And it's kind of like, it's like a perfection, because at this stage, investor looking for 1,000 reasons to invest in you and one reason not to invest in you. Because they're just like, oh, how can they make a decision like that? Like they need to make within like 5 times of meeting you, they need to make a decision whether they invest like $100 million or not. It's such a hard decision. Anyway, 2 years ago when the numbers were smaller and we were like less mature and know what we are doing, I was pitching to probably the most prestige investor in planet Earth. Maybe like number second or third, doesn't matter. One of the top 5. And because our traction was so good in revenue and student growth and customer growth, they brought the most senior person in the firm, literally like a founder. But he wasn't the founder because the firm is for years and years, but they brought the most important person to the meeting. And I start pitching, and one of the things they say like, and the person was like kind of like disrupting me. No, don't go there. Just tell me this part. He had some stuff that he cared about it. And I was like explaining, doing fun. I'm always like, even under stress, I'm fun. And then what happened was like, it said, okay, go send me this. What is your number? This. He just like write it down. What is this? It wasn't a wrong number, but we reused a method that is not used in a method of accounting that is not very well known. Not well known. the companies in Silicon Valley are not using it, and companies here, our finance guys, they were like, use it that way. We were like, oh, I don't know. So like, it seems like low. We were doing a method, they call it amortization. Don't want to get to the technical piece. It was absolutely right by accounting, but it wasn't the format they would have seen. Oh, go fix it, send it to me. What is this number? What is this number? I gave him everything. We came back, and this is now Friday, 2 p.m. I'm sort of excited, sort of extremely kind of embarrassed. Why didn't I show it to a couple of investors? Why other investors didn't say anything? Like, what's going on? Why did this guy go so much to detail? We came back and we noticed the file that we gave him was for 2 different versions. And these 2 versions, they supposed to connect with one tab because everything formulated. And my the guy who built me the model, like I was working with one of my employees. He forgot on one cell of an Excel sheet. He made one mistake, and fixing it was changing everything. Not to a big scale. It wasn't like now the business was not good as enough. But how would you get embarrassed in front of probably the most sophisticated investor in the world by first in the meeting, now he asks you to go correct it and send it. Now you have to go back and say, hey, by the way, I made almost everything now changed. Anything. Long story short, we fixed it and we sent it, and that investor never got back to us. He said, oh, thank you so much. We will be in touch, and he never be in touch. Fun fact, it's like 2 years later when we grown much, they emailed again and said they want to meet, and I was like, okay, it's good. But at that time, it didn't go. I remember that incident making me so upset. Upset at myself, upset at my co-worker that why didn't you check that? At this game, we should not make this mistake. Upset as kind of like my a lot from myself, why didn't I check it? But I learned, like there's 2 things I learned. Number one, when you have some shots like this, one-time shot, you got to be prepared, you got to make sure everything is like when you are sending a rocket to the moon, right? You cannot like say, oh, I forgot to check this. The rocket gonna blow up. And it did blow up. My opportunity was blow up. I did that second launch rocket. And that's the second thing that I learned, that it's okay, if you blow up 1 or 2 times, like you learn it and you pick it up. That round we raised, then we raised again the year after, then this year, middle of pandemic, we raised. So it didn't like kill our business, but things could have been different, maybe in worst or maybe good. I never know because it didn't happen that way. But from that time, I learned that I check things. During the last 5 years that I've done Apply Board, I don't have any incident that I say fundamentally it was like a big fuck up that I say, oh my God, it's so bad or something. It was bad, but it was always manageable and we'll figure it out. So for those of you that you're thinking of starting a company, I would say, and if that feeling is inside, I wouldn't scare of that. It's actually something that later on you tell the story and you're gonna have an enjoyment out of it. And so I wouldn't be scared of that piece of making the mistakes. I would be more like spending that, instead of be worried about it, spending it more to learning and checking things. But it's not something that because of that you want to like stop doing or something. I want to like stop here and answer any of the questions you have. I'm pretty sure you might have different questions and would be happy to answer.
Martin, thank you so much. It's an honor to talk to you. I mean, you're one of the elusive unicorn CEOs in Canada, and we're excited to have you in this particular region. And I guess a couple questions. First of all, someone said preparation is key. Obviously, that's the lesson learned through this whole process. And we've had a number of CEOs over the years that have shared that story, that maybe they weren't as prepared as they needed to be for the whole process. So one question I have for you is, you talk about the rocket ship, it's big and it's moving fast. And in order for you to maintain your position, you can't do everything right. So how do you embrace the failure culture within your organization so that you encourage people to move forward? You encourage people to move forward, great as much as you possibly can, but how are you embracing the inevitable failures that happen within an organization that's moving so fast? And how have you adopted that into the culture of your company?
Oh, good. One of the pieces that I learned was always worry about time plus one. Means don't worry about what has happened. It's always about the future. What it means in the worst system, even when I'm extremely upset at something or I'm angry or something bad is happening, my mind is always about future. I only think about, okay, this has already happened. Now what's next? And it isn't something that day one. I think you learn it as you go through it multiple times. It was one of the things that actually I struggled a lot the first couple of years of the business, understanding of how much you should get upset, because when things happen so frequently, things get break. If you want to be upset, you don't have energy. So now it's kind of like better, and the magnitude go higher. It's kind of like like your threshold for pain become higher. So less things bothers you. Like before, for example, your first person who you do a bad hire, for days you are upset about it. Of course, you learn about it. You tell people it's okay, I made a mistake. You show them your vulnerabilities. You tell them, guys, this is what I should have asked, I didn't do. I mean, that your close people who that is affecting them. And then you kind of learn. Next time you ask those questions and things go well till your next mistake. It's always kind of the time is between now and the next mistake. It's not about now and then I'm not gonna make mistakes anymore. And then over time you bring a lot of good people around you. And if you relax and you positive about what you do and you empower it, the culture get built itself. You just have to think about future, right? You should think about don't be a victim of situation. Say, for me, I had to be, because I was in US at the time that Iran and US, they were doing this, and then all these ISIS things was happening, and I'm born in a Muslim country and people were Muslims this, and then I couldn't speak English fluently, and I didn't have all this I didn't have any family member here or something that could vouch me here or there. So never thought of it oh my God, that's failure, it's gonna fail me. I was okay, this is what it is. What could we do about it? Yeah. I think if you are happy and fun, then the culture become good as well after that.
So following up on that, another CEO in town that you would know, he spoke at one point about embracing this fuck up culture and allowing it to happen, embracing it by success. But there's a lot at play here, and the joke was, at some point, you and your brothers and your senior management team, and ultimately through to your investors, have to tighten that up a little bit. So I jokingly said with them, how do you accept the fact that failure is going to happen, but yet watch them walk out the door? We don't do anymore, it's all virtually, at 5 o'clock every afternoon going, wow, they've really embraced this fuck up culture. They all fucked up and they went home. And we're stuck with how are you measuring that ability, particularly to your investors who are demanding some big things from your organization?
Yeah, we don't have that culture that way, to be honest, to go and openly talk. It's always we are doing so many things and say, oh, we done this, it didn't work, now we are doing this. It's just more about talking about the experiment. Oh, I've done this, sorry, I made a mistake, now I'm doing the next thing. So right away, there is always now this. So it's not like ever we sit down and clap for each other, said, guys, good that we've tried this, failed. It actually like impact. We always show our true emotion to employees, and also employees show their true emotion. Said, guys, we've done this. Unfortunately, things didn't go the way that we thought, or we didn't think. It resulted, for example, in X million dollar, like for example, expense for the company. We could have done better. We learned from it. Now let's talk about the next slide. Now this is the new slide. It wasn't about a culture of like, oh, it's okay, go fail, do whatever. It was all about like, oh, we are doing these 5 things, and if one or two of them didn't go forward, it's okay. We do the next one. But it was always like the true emotion behind it. We never hid it, or we never like wash it up and said, oh no, we are happy about it. No, we are not happy about it. Who is happy like when you fail? Like you're happy that you tried. But at the time that you fail, you're upset about it, and like we're just honest about it.
So quickly tell us about some of the challenges that 2020 has brought your way and some of the opportunities that 2020, I mean, the ultimate fuck up year. We'll look back at this one for a long time. How have you
counted on my age? So people tell me how old you are and say 32 minus 1. And if the pandemic continue another year, I would be 32 minus like 33 minus 2. So I'm good. Like, I don't know for other people, I'm on the pause mode. I'm not aging anymore. The 2020 first when it started was kind of like, I is scared. Like we shut down the company. I mean, the people go home remotely on Thursday, it was like March 12th, before even the government shut it down. It was Wednesday, March 12th, or maybe Thursday. And I was like telling people, guys, don't worry about it, be safe, go home, things happen, set up your computer, take monitors. But at the same time, I was like, borders gonna close. Who knows how university is gonna be? No one knew all these universities can teach online. Where does happen to my entire business? And then 5 emails from employees, from I don't know, like investors, other advisors. They keep sending me these articles. For some reason, like the night that I went home, and I was first happy that all of my employees are safe and stuff. And that was very important for me. So it took me like a day or two of numbness, of just understanding the new normal of that. I'm not going to office, because I was a guy that go there like 7:30 till like 10 p.m. every day, even like Saturdays and Sundays sometimes. It's first like it get that numbness. I think that weekend of it, I was working, and then at some point we decided to like, you know what, we just, doesn't matter if it is to root or not, we're just gonna think positive about it. So I wrote everyone, guys, I think this is the best thing ever happened to Applyboard. Without having a reason, we just like, okay, let's be positive about it. And it turned to be the positive, because all the universities that used to recruit international students through their own staff by traveling abroad, now they could not travel. And now they needed a digital solution, so everyone come to us. So it actually did turn out to be a very positive thing for us. But at that time, I remember 2 days, like March 18 or 19, it was like I was even getting emails from investors that, hey, are you guys going to do like a layoff and stuff, like a big layoff or something? It's like, why? Like, there's a challenge. Let's see what's happening. Like, and I remember companies that start doing layoff. People were thinking, I went like, guys, like relax. Like this university is not gonna go anywhere. Believe me, that board, we have a bigger problem. Like, we'll figure it out. Don't worry about it. And then people come, they will keep working about it. Yeah.
Martin, thanks so much. That empathy and understanding, adaptability are key attributes of the organization. We appreciate you sharing your story. I'm sure there's more, and you're welcome to the stage anytime to share. But for the University of Waterloo students, it's a real gift to hear you speak. And again, thanks for sharing that story. Preparation is key. Attitude and leadership to move on is obviously going to give you that much more success as you're going to need. So thank you for your participation. We look forward to hearing you more and watching you hit the moon. There's a bunch of people in your corner right now.
For sure. Thank you so much, and thank you for having me. And good luck, everyone who will listening.
Take care.
Bye bye.
Thank you so much, Martin. That was very informative. A lot of fun to hear. Before we get to your last speaker, I'm going to share a couple more of the fuck-ups that were submitted online. This one comes from Kanon, who said when he was in his first year, he was an insomniac. And during his first 1A term of exams, he was up late studying and hadn't slept in 50 hours. And then finally was like, well, I gotta at least try and rest, even if I can't fall asleep. And then he set 7 alarms for 8:30 in the morning, and somehow still didn't wake up. He set his parents to call him. He woke up to 80 missed calls from his parents, genuinely 80 missed calls. And then he got to his exam at 10:15, and it was fully over. So I guess that's a pretty good fuck up. There's no way around it. You fucked up there, Kanon, but we appreciate you sharing with us. I'll read another one too. This one's from Dora. Dora skipped class to finish writing her university applications, but then got caught by the teacher whose class she was supposed to be in. She said it was super awkward, and she dropped the class only for this reason. I guess that is a fuck up. Hopefully she got into university still. Or I guess she did, because she submitted this to WUSA. Good for you, Dora. You figured it out. I'll read one more before we get the other two going. This is a very UW one, a co-op fuck up. Khaled, on his last day of co-op, he submitted a change to the code base to complete a feature. And he went to sleep thinking it was totally good, and then he woke up the next morning to several messages about how he took down the app for a full 12 hours. He says, needless to say, test your code thoroughly. And needless to say, Khaled, you fucked up. Thanks for sharing. That's pretty good. I'll share the winner of our fuck up contest after your last speaker. But we have one more speaker for you, and he's great. He was here earlier, did the intro. The self-proclaimed CEO of Fuck Ups, Jeff McIntyre, everybody.
It is Fuck Up nights, and shit happens. Emily, unfortunately, we haven't figured out how to get her to connect, so I get to share my story. And I will say that I did this in Toronto to a group of young executives. There are about 250 people there. And I had so many people at the end of it come up to me and say, you told my story. And it's opened up a bunch of amazing relationships for me in discussions, dialogue, coaching, mentoring. But it's something that I think resonated with a lot of people, and happy to jump in and do it. We had a backup plan. It is Fuck Up Night. So a little bit about me. I'm a family guy, and at a distance, I have to control when I'm going to see them, how often I'm going to see them, and it's something that I struggle with sometimes. Friends, I've got a ton of friends. I've got a bunch of great friends. I think that it's taken me an understanding that quantity is way less important than quality is. And over the years, I've realized that through my maturity and from a lot of failures that volume and having a whole bunch of people doesn't necessarily get you anywhere in your life. Having people that have your back is really, really important. But I was that guy that was really worried about being connected and not wanting to miss out on anything. Relationships, I've had some good ones and I've had some bad ones, and that's including professional, including personal ones. I was always in control of the process, and there was always something that I always reached in to find what was wrong with the situation, as opposed to embracing exactly what is right with it. So it's taken me some time to move that through. School, I couldn't get into University of Waterloo. I'm a Laurier grad, no booing. But I was an arts by choice major. I had intentions of going through and going to university and becoming a lawyer and making bazillions of dollars, and I realized I just wanted to get the degree and get moving through. I was extremely independent, and I was introverted It appears to those that know me, sometimes it shocks people, but I'm a bit of an ambivert. I'm both internal. I like to, my own time, and I like to have my social time, but more and more, in particular through COVID, I've really been able to embrace my my introversion. So this is a great story. Right out of university, I like every good person, every connection I've ever made. I met a guy on a bar stool in Port Elgin one year, and I was just finishing up school, and I said, when I graduate, I'm going to come and work for you. And he goes, sure you are, buddy. You're going to be fantastic. And the day I graduated, I called him and I said, I'm ready to go. And he goes, you're not going to believe this. The rep in my territory in the pharmaceutical sales, which I had, just resigned. And he says, I'm going to be looking for someone in the Waterloo region, which is unbelievable. So my first this is a Banff Springs hotel. The first 3 weeks of my employment was spent there, training, national sales dream. While I was there, they were delivering my company car to my house, setting up my expense account, travel, home office. I was a professional overnight. I was wearing suits and doing all kinds of great things. And I was golfing. I was playing hockey. I was doing everything that I wanted to do very quickly. And it was really exciting. And it was also quite scary too. Emily jumped on, so let me fire through this, and we'll do a real quick intro to, because I think, let's do that. So this, and I'm not going to rush through it because it is important, but this is inherited. I say this is inherited versus my reality. I had the top sales in the division. I had the highest market share in Canada in sales. I had a great brand. I worked for Johnson & Johnson. It was recognition. It was easy to open. I could make appointments. I could have doctors call. I could have them see me all the time. It seemed really easy for me compared to others to do this. But the reality was my numbers started becoming a concern. My motivation to sell diminished, and I got lazy, and I got scared, and it got into a little bit of a black place. More and more introverted with work, and started making more excuses as to why I wasn't going to work. I started faking it to friends and family. Anyone was asking how I was doing. It was great. I was getting new cars every 6 months. I had expense accounts. I was golfing. I was doing all these other things. But the reality was I wasn't focusing on the real business, and the ability to hide it was fantastic. But really, the reality was I was embarrassed, I was confused, and I was down. So this is what I was selling to the world. I was the young professional with a ton of hair back then. I was it. A lot of people desired to be in the pharmaceutical sales industry. It was really quite exciting. To me, this is what I was presenting to the world. When the reality, this is what I felt. It was dark. I felt alone. I felt really dumb. I was talking to doctors, and I didn't know what I was talking about. I was just kind of faking through the whole process. I was embarrassed. I was finding more reasons to cancel appointments as opposed to continue on with the appointments. Obviously, confusion. I was holding on to the smallest victories and making myself feel great about that when in reality, the bigger issue was happening. I started comparing myself to the others, and I really felt inadequate. And then I always had this fear of what was next. And I went into a really, really dark place. And I think ultimately this can be referred to as imposter syndrome, whatever you want. But I was faking the whole process. Everything about that I was going through at the time. I was making good money, again, company car, all the different things. But the reality was I wasn't doing very well. I wasn't succeeding. So I did what I always did in the past. I just walked away. So I remember calling my national sales manager and saying, you hired the wrong guy. I'm sorry. Here's my resignation. And I was obviously in tears. I was doing that, and I was realizing I'm going to give everything away, and I have to cook up an excuse as to why it didn't work out. And it was a really scary time for me, but this was what I did. So what happened next? My mentor, my boss at the time, wouldn't accept my resignation. He apologized for kind of letting me go on my own. He said, you are not my problem child. You're the one that seems to have it all going. I've got way worse issues that are going on right now, and you're really the benchmark of success. You've got the perspective, you've got the energy, you've got the attitude. He goes, with a little bit of coaching, and I'm sorry I gave you so much space, but I'm going to dig in on this now. So I began this journey of honesty where I was going to be honest with myself. I was going to be honest with everybody that I was dealing with. I was going to ask for assistance. I was going to get training. I was going to start feeling like I belonged to this process. I realized I was not the smartest person in the room. I was just the best listener. So as a lot of people talk and, salespeople think, oh, they're great. They should be in sales. They should talk. Well, that's bullshit. The reality is great salespeople listen. You have 2 ears, 1 mouth, listen twice as much as you talk. You will build better. And ultimately, I built confidence over time. And it took a while for me to get through this whole process. So there were casualties as a result of this. I was young. I was impressionable. There was relationships that ended as a result of it, both personal and professional, and I did have some problems. I probably could have been retired right now if I would have stuck with it, because working with Johnson & Johnson, having shares and options, if I wouldn't have walked away eventually from that, I gave away a bunch of time. There were some friendships that I lost, but there was ultimately friendships that I gained. And I lost time. And I encourage everyone not to be an imposter and just really focus on the fact that you only have so much time, and as you move through, if you lose that, you never get it back. So the positives that have come out of this, I do exactly what I love. Every single day I wake up and I'm excited about the opportunities that are happening right now, and I'm not going to be an imposter. I'm not going to fake it. I'm just going to be sincere. I have an incredibly supportive network. I have all kinds of people that will be there to assist me, and that only has come because I've helped and assisted a bunch of other people along the way, and I'm open and honest with those people, and when they're struggling, they know they can come to me because I've lived experience as being an imposter and moved it through. I can clearly define my day, what I do, how I break up my day, and what's important to me. I do something every single day that scares the shit out of me. I really think it's important to keep myself alive I taught a spin class one day. I'm not qualified to do that, but I was like, I'm jumping on the bike. I'm doing this. I'll do anything that scares me every single day. And I applaud myself for doing it. And I also get acknowledged on the other side that you're a real risk taker. I'm not doing anything that, my life. I'm not that kind of a risk taker. I would not climb Everest, but there are things that I will do every day. And then I realize that I'm increasing my wisdom with every single opportunity. So that's a quick story. Now back to the regular scheduled program. We've got Emily back, jumped on board, which is fantastic. So thanks for bearing with me and letting me tell my story of being an imposter.
Thank you, Jeff, for jumping in with that. The man came in with a killer presentation on last No Notice. He's the best. But now we have our final speaker of the evening here. She's logged on, ready for us. She's got some crazy fun facts I want to tell you. She lived in the Waterloo region for 10 months. She once stole the Wolf of Wall Street speaking notes out of presentation and then had the guts to go and get him to try and sign them after. She also once snail mailed David Chilton from Dragon's Den from prison, and now he's her business coach. That is wild. I can't wait to listen to her speak. Emily O'Brien, everybody.
Yay. Okay. Can everyone hear me? Oh, wait, no, that doesn't make, yeah, everyone can. Awesome. It's the first time kind of like using this app. So I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay. Start sharing screen, and then we're going to go to, oh, wait, not this. There we go. Okay. I'm Emily O'Brien, and this is my fuck up tale. It's called Love Lockdown. So I was born in Hamilton, Ontario, a pretty normal kid. Great family, great parents, played sports, but always still a little bit rebellious. It's my amazing family. I actually have 2 sisters, but the other one's not there because, I don't know, she just didn't come. But anyway, great family. Always had a smile on my face. Couldn't complain. From a very young age, I also really liked to work. So I had all these strange jobs growing up, one of them being like a cemetery worker. So yeah, I learned how to bury people. Other than that, regular stuff like McDonald's, pizza girl. I sold knives door to door. I just love the feeling of like making my own money and always, I don't know, being able to spend on things that I wanted, like, lip smackers and plane tickets, right? And then eventually alcohol. Off to university I went after high school. This was just, a great time. I went to the University of Guelph, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do yet, so I just picked like something that sounded fun, like international development, and because I love to travel and I loved working abroad, and working abroad really brought me a lot of new experiences and different perspectives, and that was just my favorite thing to do. I also frequented a lot of parties, as you can tell, so I learned how to, you know, funnel beer and go to Halloween parties. I got the travel bug at a very young age, so this was actually a trip to Peru that I took in university, but my first trip abroad was to Costa Rica. And again, I would just venture to different parts of the world, sometimes without notice, because I just liked being adventurous. I call myself a professional adventurist, so good times. University continued. I was just always expanding my skill set, whether that was in, you know, karaokeing, doing shots, or volunteering. I did a lot of volunteering. I also sat on a bunch of boards of directors in university, and I also really loved taking part in like those research studies where you get paid like $20 to answer all those weird questions. Yeah, that's my favorite. I moved across Canada throughout school and in the middle of summer, and that's when I really discovered what I was good at. I figured out I was a beer cart girl, so I liked beer and I liked golfers because I thought they were sexy, and so yeah, it was just perfect job for me. I raked it in that summer and paid for all my schooling. So I actually was able to graduate debt free, and again focused on like trying to take all these experiences and figure out like what did I really learn. And that was that I could communicate. That's what was that I could laugh. That I was, you know, interested in fun things like golf and chatting with people. And yeah, so all these odd jobs really helped me build a pretty good skill set. I also worked for the Habitat for Humanity, you know, being a trip leader. We went down to Texas, so I thought for fun we could go to the gun range and Mardi Gras. You know, I was just the best trip leader out there, so got 5-star reviews from all my campers, and you know, learned how to operate some heavy machinery. So that's good. I think it's super important to always try to be involved in as many different things as you can. Some of your best skills you don't get through paid education; it's actually through volunteering. Okay, now what? A little intermission. You know, I'm in my 5th year and I'm supposed to be graduating. So, you know, like my grades were good, but I still didn't know what I wanted to do. So I actually took an international trip abroad to Indonesia. I actually put my degree to good use. I worked for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, lived with the host family, and I was there for about 3 months, which was awesome. And I actually ended up going back. So did all the fun things, like playing with monkeys and lions and sea cucumbers. Just getting learning so much about the country and really learning to develop patience and an appreciation for things other than, you know, material goods. All right, so now my trip's coming to an end and I'm like, okay, now what am I gonna do? You know, I got 5 years of university, I got about a year of travel, give or take, to all these different places, and I got really good grades, and I have a lot of marketing jobs in my background and my skill set. So how am I going to put those to use? We'll eat some more in Indonesia. Why not? So I decided to take a go at entrepreneurship, and throughout all my travels, I'd actually built up a pretty decent following online, and people loved the way that I shared stories. And so I was like, okay, I kind of want to give this a go. Like I loved the adventure every day brought me, just running a business and starting it and failing and everything like that. So off I went. I lived in Toronto, and my office was in Liberty Village. You know, it wasn't my office. I actually like co-shared it, obviously, because it's Toronto. But as you can see, I was a very healthy eater. I loved iced tea and rice for lunch. So my company grew pretty fast. I didn't really do any advertising, but I started working with like famous athletes. This is former hockey player Daryl Sittler, Tiger Williams. I also worked with like Charles Oakley and like former Housewives of Toronto. So I was doing something right. And it just got a little too out of hand how good I was doing, because, you know, with fast success comes fast party, and not with hockey players, but just all the events that I would always be doing. I quickly got caught up in the scene. This is me working a Tim Hortons campaign. They didn't ask me to come back this year. It's okay. I got to go to fun events like Hockey Hall of Fame and induction ceremonies and stuff. So it was great. A lot of the work that I did revolved around like sports and music and hip hop and stuff. So it was really good. I also had a fun little side hustle. I ran a dial bottle company called Nightcap, and it was in Liberty Village, and I used to deliver liquor on a scooter at like 4 a.m. and like, you know, made like $1,000 a weekend. It was good. I wouldn't recommend it because I don't think it's legal, but you know, never got caught. And then I started to kind of date for the wrong reasons. I actually started dating someone who really liked me, and I didn't really like him, but he was like super successful. So I was like, okay, we'll just like date you for fun. And he helped me build my business for sure, but I knew that I wasn't really in the relationship for what I should be in it for. And that really didn't lead to true happiness. So every time I would be at the airport, he lived in North Carolina, and he took me to Google, he took me everywhere. But this started to catch up with me. So when I would come home from visiting him, I would just go to the park and play the ukulele with, you know, a couple bags of cocaine and a couple bottles of vodka. And that was my escape. And in the midst of all this, my family actually split up, and this was just the worst. So I know we all lose people, and we all lose relationships that are close to us. And I didn't know how to handle it. And I felt this kind of shame and guilt for being sad about it. And so I kind of hid it. I 100% hid it. I ran from it. And just seeing people you love in pain is one of the most heartbreaking things. So I went from celebrating to medicating. And medicating in bathtubs with no water in it. Then I meet Mr. Wonderful, and he comes along, and he's like, he actually wants me to like quit my drinking. He wants me to stop doing coke, and I'm like, I wanted to too, and I thought he would help me get on the right track. And we actually did some business together, and then the business stopped being business when his check started bouncing, and he started buying me all these weird presents that I never asked for, like a sound system that had like cement in the speakers. He bought me a watch that had no battery in it. Like, okay, buddy, like I'm gonna do time later. Thanks, got it. And then he also he bought me something else. Oh yeah, dessert wine, which is like the most disgusting thing on the planet. I never drank it, so I'm like, why are these weird gifts coming? I don't know. I ignored the red flags, like we all like to do. And he asked me to go on this trip, and he's like, all right, you want to come on this trip with me? And I was like, okay, that sounds fun, but you know, like, when do you want to leave? And he's like, well, we can leave in 2 days, but I just got to ask you something. And I'm like, well, what's that? And he's like, well, you actually have to bring drugs back. And I was like, wait, what do you mean? I'm not bringing any drugs back. Are you joking? Get the fuck out of my apartment. And he laughed. He's embarrassed. And I was pissed like that he even asked me that, because he knew how much I love to travel, and he knew that I had never done anything like that. And I was just offended that he would try to like just sideswipe my career like that, and I just didn't understand where it came from. So you could tell that this clearly like aggravated me, and like I was kind of shocked. And he's like, you know what, I'm so sorry I even asked that. Like, what was I thinking? And I was out that night, and he's like, let's just go on this trip, and you know what, like I promise nothing's gonna happen. Like I shouldn't have even suggested it. I was like, I was so stupid. And I was like, okay, like do you solemnly swear like nothing's gonna happen on this trip if I go with you? He's like, yeah, I swear. And I believed him. You know, the verbal vodka shots that he gave me and the physical vodka shots that I was taking. It's a recipe for disaster. Anyway, so I said, okay, I believe you. And we go on this trip to St. Lucia. 3 days in, I find out, you know, I'm not just going to be bringing some postcards home. I'm going to be bringing a whole lot more. I then found out that I was actually going to be bringing 2 kilograms of cocaine. And it wasn't until the 3rd day that I found this out. And I found out that he owed a bunch of money, and that he had told these like drug smuggling people that I would be bringing them back with him because he had this debt to pay. And I didn't want to, he's like, you're not backing out because I already told them. And his personality just completely switched. It was a nightmare. It was scary. And I just wanted to go home. So I wasn't about to play hardball, because I'm absolutely like not a gangster at all. Like not in the slightest. So I just wanted to go home, and I wanted to protect my family because I didn't know what would happen. So these are just some improvised photos that he wanted me to take to make it look like I was having fun. Well, obviously, when you bring drugs back and you're not an experienced drug mule, or you are, well, you're going to get caught. And I told him I was going to be terrible at it, and I was. And I was arrested and subsequently put on house arrest for 2.5 years. And I was like, what the fuck do you mean house arrest? I was like, I'm not going back on house arrest. Like, I'm an adult. This is an inconvenience. This is bullshit. And I surrounded myself with people that helped me embrace that victim mentality. And I didn't really want to take responsibility for my lack of action prior to what happened, because that's what I could have controlled the most. And so, yeah, stuck in house arrest, living with mom. Denial, 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 anger, anger, anger. He did it, right? And it wasn't until I actually got arrested a second time for breaching my house arrest conditions that I really started to realize how much I had and how much my family loved me and supported me, but they weren't about to support me if I couldn't get my substance use under control, because I was still using at this point, and because I was just confused and unsure and obviously hurt and just a clusterfuck of emotions. So yeah, I spent a lot of time in denial for sure, and I didn't start healing and moving forward until I realized that I could have done things differently. So of course, pretended like it wasn't really bothering me. I had to continue to run a business like nothing ever happened. And that was hard too. It's like living in like, I was just stressed out all the time. I was always looking around my shoulder. Like it was the most stressful 2 years of my life. But you know, stress makes you stronger in the end. So I decided then that I was going to make prison a better experience for me than what people were telling me it was going to be for me. Because I looked on all my past accomplishments and the good things that I'd done. I looked at the friends that I had, the network that I had, and the people that believed in me. And I started to research where I was going to go. What was prison like? Like, and I knew that like if I could get in there for something like that and not be evil, I knew that everyone in there probably had a very similar story to me. And that was like I was about to prove myself right when I actually went to prison. So it was my quiet surrender day. I pled guilty to importing narcotics, and I got a 4-year sentence. And I went in on January 16th, 2018, my mom's birthday. Happy birthday, mom. I gave her the gift of sobriety for her birthday. So best gift. And I'm now an inmate. 410917F. Emily Ann O'Brien. That's me. That's all they think of you as. But that's not what I thought of me as. I knew that there was something more to not just me. I knew there was something more to everyone else in there. And I knew that that the system was fractured. I knew that there was so much disparity, like in between the prison populations. Like I was able to get out on bail because my parents had the resources, and I had the education to kind of, you know, be able to prepare myself. And there was so much that I had that a lot of other people in there didn't have. And I knew that I didn't want to just use this experience to share my story, but help create a platform for others to share theirs, because we have so many misconceptions about what people in prison are like. And you know, I was about to break down those barriers because so many of them were not true. Everyone that I met in there was like super kind and welcoming, and but also had been through tremendous abuse. I had none of that. And we were having a popcorn party one day, and not popcorn, sorry, a Super Bowl party, and we ended up putting some different kind of flavor combinations on the popcorn that we had, and I actually thought it was delicious. And then I saw how much food brought people together, and how food and snacks in prison made people feel like they weren't there, and how it helped heal. And that's when I decided to launch like a popcorn company. So as soon as I got out, like, and I built the business from within with popcorn kernels and stamps, and I wrote letters. You know, I set up a landing page for the business, like, because I didn't have the internet in there, but like my mom did, and my business partner did. So we start to generate all this like buzz about it while I was still inside, and I was ready for my action plan when I got out. I was like, I'm going to start to make real change. Started this is one pot, one pot in my mom's kitchen, because she's my biggest supporter, and that's where I would go. Like I could leave the halfway house, like, 'cause I had to go to the halfway house after. I could leave the halfway house to kind of go to her house and mess around with these recipes. So that's what it started with. And my goal was also to employ people that had been to prison, because I know that employment was a huge, like, it was a huge fear of people coming out of prison, because it's
Emily, I think your headphones might have died. We just lost your audio. So we'll stay with... just check the private chat and Adrian will show you what to do. Everything was going great. We were all on the edge of our seat. And boom. So just everyone bear with us for a second, please.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
We'll go back. All right. And we'll go. Oh, well, we're going to do a little fast track. Life before my eyes. Here. Okay. So yeah, I started with one pot in the kitchen, and then every day I would go out to events. I would micro sponsor things. So instead of like paying to be somewhere, like I would just bring free popcorn. And I also shared the story publicly, and I knew that this was going to come at a risk for me because I knew that I would have no privacy. I knew that there was going to be people that wouldn't like it, that wouldn't accept it. In this online world, there's definitely lots of abuse that goes on these platforms, but I didn't care, and I knew that no stranger could say something to me that I hadn't already heard and that I hadn't already proven wrong. So fuck the trolls. I didn't give a shit. And just owning that and just having the strength to not care about people that said bullshit online. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be honest. And I think that also comes with accountability and explaining what happened from the very beginning, but also taking ownership. Because if you don't take ownership for it, the things that we do, like someone else is going to own it for you. And yeah, so now I have, this is me and JT, John Tory. Like I went to this event in Toronto. It was actually an event called Helping Offenders on Parole Excel, HOPE. And it's in conjunction with the Yonge Street Mission. And so he was there, and then I ended up talking to him and Saunders, and then he's like, I'm going to tweet about you. And I was terrified. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to get ripped apart like all these Twitter people. And I was awake all night. I was like, oh my God, what are people saying? And then they were all good. There was a couple ones that were like obnoxious, but you get over it in like 10 seconds. So it was good. And it used to be called Cons and Kernels, but we actually switched the name to be called Comeback Snacks because that's what we've done. That's what we've proven. After almost 2 years in business, I can say people that go to prison can manage money and not steal it. People that go to prison will come to work. People that have been to prison are good parents. People that have gone to prison are motivated, and people that have gone to prison can change. And so I basically have us, not just me, but the people that have worked with me, the organizations that we've collaborated with, they have all seen that this is true, and that we've made it happen. And the best way to eradicate stigma is actually through proof. So here we are today. And this is another very essential component of my work. It's called emotional profit. And this is not just giving back, but giving forward and helping educate people who have been through similar circumstances or helping pull people through the bad situations that they go through in life. And this is what I call emotional profit, and that's money for the soul. So I think in any kind of work that you do, it should involve, I think for it to be really powerful is to actually bring other people with you and help people learn and teach. And so mentoring is something that I do. I have students that have barriers with access to funding. They've had addiction problems and stuff. So always try to give forward. So I might not own a property, but at least I can own this. And owning a story it has been my biggest asset, and prison has not been a liability. So thank you very much. That's it.
Emily, you're incredibly inspiring. We met in Toronto the first time, and we shared our stories on a stage. So we did it again this evening, which was pretty cool. The one thing that always echoes through when I listen to you talk and when I talk to you is you've never played the victim card. at all. You've embraced and accepted all the opportunities. How are you helping those other people? Because you do a lot of work. I mean, we just scratched the surface on what you're doing. But for those other people that are coming out of incarceration, what less like how are you coaching and mentoring them at such a young age with such wisdom and what are you preparing them for and how are you doing it?
It all starts with just being open. It's by answering the phone. It's by answering an email. It doesn't necessarily have to be something that's 100% structured all the time. It's just being a listening ear and responding to someone or giving them, introducing them to people that like hire people with records, right? So it's all about connecting. And yeah, again, it's not always about the structure. It's not about, oh, you have to, give 8 hours a week. It's about like, okay, this person is asking for this and that's what they need. And the faster you can deliver that, then that's when you're really going to help someone. Because the faster you can deliver it, the faster they can act on it. So like helping people can come in so many shapes and forms. It can come in like a 5-minute phone call. It can come in, taking someone to the bank for the first time. It can come in like meeting someone's family or talking to someone's family, right? So it's not static. It's a very giving help, and it's very dynamic, right? It doesn't really have one set way of doing it. It depends on the person and what their individual needs are.
Your energy and enthusiasm is a gift. Maybe it's a curse, depending. I don't know if you can shut this off. So what does Comeback Snacks look like in the future? What's the big plan for it?
Well, right now we're actually talking with distributors, so we couldn't expand. And obviously I want to expand the mission. It's not about how much popcorn can I get out there. It's like how many minds can I change and how many other people can I get employed? How many people can I have an impact on, whether you're a business owner or someone that's been through the system or someone that's been through addiction or basically anyone, right? So we couldn't produce in our kitchen anymore. Like we still do. We do like smaller orders, but now we have partnerships with 2 co-packers and we have like a whole e-commerce channel. So instead of popping it all in-house, we couldn't keep up with the demand. So we have like little popcorn factory partnerships, which is good. One for the caramel line, and then the other varieties are going to be out in January. So it's good. And so now my staff who's been working in the kitchen, now they get to manage accounts. So as we grow, like their skill sets are growing as well. And I just ask them what they want to do. I don't tell them what they have to do. I just ask them what they feel comfortable doing, and I cater kind of to their needs instead of expecting them to cater to mine.
Where can we find your products?
Comebacksnacks.com/shop.
And are there physical Hurleys?
Yeah.
Is there anything in Waterloo region right now?
On our website right now. So you can find it online. And then we just picked up 2 new stores today, so it's good. And then we're going to be on well.ca within the month. So very exciting.
Emily, you're incredible. Thank you so much for sharing your story, being open, honest, vulnerable. That's what Fuck Up Nights is all about. You define, another one, you define what the message is all about, the vulnerability, the open, the honesty. So we will listen to you talk anytime, and there'll be more and more opportunities, but we wish you well. And you've done some porch deliveries for me through COVID. It was great to see your face, but it's really nice to see you. And again, thanks for sharing your message. It's so, so valuable. And I've said this to you before. I have an Emily, and Emily's are wonderful people. You are too. The fact that you went down that wrong road, but you're willing to share it. Hopefully, we stop some people from going down that road. So, and what you did was you went down that road, but you embraced it. So, well done.
Yeah, and I feel like if you're a daredevil in life, and if you are very kind of like not risk averse, like you're going to go down the wrong road regardless. It's not about trying to prevent you from ever messing up. It's kind of be like encouraging you to do something with that failure, right? So because that's really how you don't like get strong by like not doing push-ups. You have to do push-ups.
You're incredible. Emily, thank you very much for taking the time for us. Cheers.
No problem.
So, as we've seen through the speakers throughout the evening, hopefully everyone understood that failure was a mindset. And you can do 2 things. You can say, I'm not going to grow, or I'm going to grow. I'm going to learn from it, or I'm not. Failure, Fuck Up Nights is really about that, sharing failures so that we can learn from it. Challenges help me grow. You can go either way on that, say. it's too hard, I'm going to fold. We've seen a lot of people through COVID. It's been the shittiest time for a lot of people. It's been the most exciting time for a lot of people, but it's really in the mindset and how you approach it. And if you chunk it off a little bit at a time, there's a better chance. So is it a opportunity to grow, or is it, it's limiting my ability? I don't like to be challenged. My potential is predetermined. Wherever I'm frustrated, I give up. Those aren't recipes for success, particularly in a challenging time. So we encourage everyone to just listen to these stories and learn from them. That's the key part of the whole process. If we're in a room right now, we do this exercise where it's stand up if, and it's really quite enlightening. And we ask a series of questions, and it's really to get to know who's in the room. And I won't do them all now because we can't stand up and we can't do a hand sign thing. But one of the things that we do is say stand up if you're whatever. But one of the ones that's really interesting is that stand up if you work in a field that you did not study. And in our last group, we had 250 people. Our last group, we had 70 because of COVID. The one prior to that, we had 250 people. And about 80% of the population stand up and at this point, and it just shows that in the undergrad world right now, I'm not telling you you're in the wrong thing, but there's a pretty good chance you don't know exactly what you're going to do. And this one is always very interesting. I always say to everyone, bring your kids to these events so they can see all the stories, but they can see this particular one and show that getting that degree in whatever it is really just the start of the process. You're going to do some great things through life. You're going to fail, but it doesn't necessarily mean that's exactly what you need to do. It's not a death sentence. We ask everyone to stand up if they're a student, and if anyone doesn't stand up, we say you're a lifelong learner, so get your ass out of the chair and move. And then number 3 is stand out if you're figuring up your next step. Again, same thing. This is super, super important. I don't know anybody that knows exactly where that goes. As an entrepreneur and as someone who embraces change and wakes up every morning and does whatever is required to get it done, I like to not know exactly what's happening. So if I can bring Ben back in.
Well said, Jeff. That's very cool. Before we get out of here for the end of the show, we want to say thank you for sticking around. But we also have our winning fuck up submitted online, and this was submitted by Matthew. Matthew, if you're on the stream, WUSA will get in touch with you directly about picking up your $50 gift card and your fuck up night swag. So congratulations. But we're going to all read your fuck up now. Matthew said that in high school he worked at a Staples store. It was Staples store number 57. They sold like computers and tech parts, and it was a lot of it was warranties and dealing with the warranties. And when you had to deal with a warranty, you would have to print out a shipping label to send it back to be repaired. And when he was just starting, so he was signed in under his boss's credentials on the computer system. And then when he put in to print off the shipping label, he put in store number 52, but he said earlier it was store number 57. I didn't notice. And then when it wasn't printing, he just kept clicking print over and over to try and get the right shipping label to print. And then eventually he called over his boss. He's like, I don't see how it's not working. And his boss came in, and he had just gotten a very angry phone call from store number 52 in Saskatoon, who had just printed about 100 shipping labels with the boss's name on them to that store. So that guy, not only did he fuck up, but he got his boss in trouble. So I think that's a pretty ultimate fuck up for the night. Matthew, you fucked up that day, but you won tonight because you get some cool stuff and a $50 gift card. I think the night wasn't fucked up at all, though. Here, I had a really good time. Thanks for having me, Jeff. It was a lot of fun. Before we get out of here, we wanted to plug the Instagrams for Fuck Up Night and for WUSA, right?
Yep, Ben, thanks so much for your participation. Appreciated it.
Of course.
Final words. Yeah, follow us on Fuck Up Nights. Connect with WUSA online as well, too. Share your stories. It's really important that we're all in this together in the virtual world, but there's a lot to be learned through this whole process. Thank you. Our final words. Be safe. Please wear a mask. Wash your fucking hands. And keep fucking up, because without that stuff, we're going to have a lack of stories going forward. So to everyone, be safe, be careful, and we'll see you next time.